Welcome back to the show. Today's topic, self-discipline. First, what is self-discipline? And I'm just literally going to read the definition of what you, if you would Google it, it'll be the first thing that kind of that will pop up on your Google search or whatever. And the only reason I took it was because when I was doing the just a little bit of research on it, and I had Googled it, what is self discipline, and then the definition. I thought it was pretty accurate or well enough to just kind of start it there, so we can have a baseline where to move forward in the discussion. So basically, like when you type in, or even just me telling you now, what is self discipline? What will come up will be the ability to control your feelings and overcome a weakness, doing what's right despite temptations to do wrong. That's basically, even though it can branch out more. You hear it a lot in sports, and other fields, and we'll get to that a little bit farther down in the discussion. But I thought it was pretty accurate, and definitely hits to the point of it, of or one of the examples, or one of the uh, points that I'll be trying to make is overcoming a weakness, and doing what's right, despite temptation. And it goes along with all this, chatter or rah a notion of, with this alpha beta energy and stuff like that. I mean, I get in debates with men all day long sometimes. Just, not that I go out debating people, but in the stuff that I'm involved in, it's very prominent. So I get to discuss this with other men of all ages, and when I hear them talking about smashing someone's girlfriend, or sleeping with someone's wife, taking advantage of the wife being, her marriage falling apart, and these men saying, "Oh, alpha, you still sleep with them," and take advantage of women like that in scenarios, whether it be they're out drinking, and without getting into too much of an example, just taking, knowing that you shouldn't, and being, doing what's correct, even though temptation is telling you to, your body is telling you, or your body, it wants something, but you should be able to dictate what's correct and what's not correct. And in being quote unquote alpha male, self discipline is one of those key characteristics that make them. So when I'm arguing with these guys of all ages, or now, again, not even trying to argue, just trying to show them they're incorrect in the way they're seeing it. A true alpha doesn't want to destroy a marriage, knows that there's an abundance of women, so why should he be a catalyst? If she gets divorced and then chooses to pursue afterwards, that's completely a different story. But for a lot of men that think it's some kind of alpha energy to take advantage of certain scenarios, or temptations, again we'll call them, and somehow that equivalates to them, and the manhood or alphaness that they have, is the misconception that I'm arguing here, or where we, where my podcast is, where the information that you're getting, even when I tell them these things, that that's not what a true alpha male does. An alpha male is protective, is a leader, has discipline, is goal orientated, is and I mean, I only say that because there's so many examples of what to be alpha, and I've talked about it before. It just depends. We're not alpha in every aspect of our life, but we have to be more alpha, quote unquote, in most aspects of our life to be even declared. I want to use as an example because just like that, when I was reading it off the Google search, and it was like, doing what's right despite temptation to do wrong. is where a lot of men, depending on what when they're entering in this, or what they're hearing is what I should say, is that man takes what is his and doesn't ask questions and doesn't care whether she's married or not because that's not your concern, and all this kind of like caveman thinking. And it's not even caveman thinking, it's just douchebag thinking. And I guess you think that there's scarcity out there of that particular woman, so violence happening against you, or you just being the catalyst to the end of a relationship. And mind you, I've heard many examples of relationships that were destined to fail. That's the justification. And I'm like, well, it don't matter. It could be destined to fail, but you should have enough self-discipline and respect for yourself, and knowing that you don't want that kind of juju, kind of karma. And whether, I don't care whether you believe it or not, it should be self-discipline at the core of every man. So when you do and take advantage of these low-hanging fruits that are delicious, if you want to go with the fruit analogy, but there's no challenge, and it's just a now, even with saying that, and I know that's just one aspect as to cheating girlfriends or cheating wives, like, go moving away from that one little aspect, self discipline in an overall aspect, it's a lot easier said than done, right? To say, oh, just hold yourself to a higher standard. You hear it all the time that, oh, it's so hard to not eat a donut when you want to lose weight, or when you want to do certain things, wake up earlier, go to the gym. There's, again, the examples are endless, but it's easier to say I'm gonna do something, and then when it gets down to putting the sneakers on, when it gets down to changing a diet, when it gets down to trying to change a habit, it's really, really difficult. Why is that? Is I think we've just been programmed to think of self discipline in a negative light, like, or at least not in a negative light where you're saying, oh, it's evil, or just in a negative light where when you hear self discipline, you're like, oh, restrictions, oh, you can't have so much of. And we just automatically associate that with a negative thing, even though when self discipline is added to, let's say, a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, depression, substance abuse, any kind of overdoing it, and you apply self discipline into those areas, it becomes hard. And I'll talk about this a little bit further down. It should help out in some of these instances, especially when it's someone that has an addictive personality. When you start trying, and it's all on an individual basis. I can't tell someone to be self-disciplined. I could just tell them, hey, if you are self-disciplined in these areas, it might change for you. So you might want to try that. It's the same thing with us. If we're honest with ourselves, we need to be first ask ourselves that questions to, for our mind to give us the right answers. And if you think you drink too much and you want to quit drinking, then you have to then grab that concept of self-discipline, adapting some kind of self-discipline, like I said, and using that to get you to cut back, to get you to cut it off, to get you to be able to achieve what you're wanting to get. I mean, I know I use it as in alcohol as in a bad way, but maybe you just want to drink less. You like alcohol, but you want to drink less, and that's great. Whatever gets you to that goal, maybe from 4 beers a day to 2 beers a day. Maybe then you get it down to 1 beer a day, and that's a great improvement. And then you did that through applying a self-discipline formula that allowed you to get to your. And what kind of formula? It's a very, again, it's individualized to you, because only you have lived through your life, through your steps, and have experienced what you're experiencing, so only you know what self-disciplines. Maybe it's a porn addiction and you don't want to watch porn as much. Maybe it's something where you want to be kinder and you get angry so much you want to apply self-discipline to your anger. And once you ask that to your mind, like I said in previous podcasts, once you ask your brain the correct question, it will give you the answer, because when you ask it the wrong question, it's giving you the answer. It always gives you the answer, which leads to our wherever we are currently in our life, because we ask it crappy questions. And this is not an old news or groundbreaking, science. That's the way the mind works. The mind works the way the mind works. So it's designed to be the greatest computer, the greatest problem solver in history. So how are we supposed to be able to, have it function like it's supposed to function if we are not asking it to solve the correct equation? If we're asking it, what how to get if 2 plus 2 equals 1. I mean, 2 plus 2 equals 4 equals 1. If 2 plus 2 equals 4, but we're asking, you know, is 3 times 3 equals 4. It's the misinformation, and you're just wasting time. When we reprogram it, and again, it's all individuals. A long about way of saying it, it's whatever it is to you, listening, and where you're at in your life at that moment, and saying, what is it that you want to change? What are you addicted to? What kind of addictive, you know uh tendencies do you have that you want to control? Maybe you have a high sex drive that you want to control. Maybe it's a gambling habit. Maybe it's being tardy all the time. Maybe it's being antisocial. Maybe it's not having enough, having too many friends, not enough friends. What self discipline can you adapt and add to your life, create that change? And again, it's easier said than done, but it's not as hard as some think, because all you have to do is focus on. We all have addiction. We all have an addictive personality. It just depends on where you are on that scale. We're gonna have many, but you try to focus on the ones that are hindering you the most. So in let's say in an instance that you have a gambling habit, and it puts a strain on your family. It puts a strain because now rent, is not being paid, or the lights being shut off, or whatever, because of your gambling habit. But you might also drink a little bit, smoke a little bit of weed, smoke some cigarettes, and not be as attentive to your family as you want to be. Well, you might want to prioritize maybe one or two, maybe the family and the gambling, and add self-discipline onto that, and just let the others be, but try to create some momentum of progress, so that your mind and soul and spirit stay attached to the mission, which is be to complete it. That's why you want to engage in only a couple and not all. You'll hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you have to change everything completely." That's when men get overwhelmed and then feel like failures, and then end up going to the drastic point, though small, but do end up in like, again, I'm going to repeat, probably in every episode I probably have done it, if not damn near close to most of them, is the scary number of the high numbers of suicide among. And I'm probably going to keep on saying it, because it just leads a lot of this stuff where we are told, and you hear them, and you see how people are, that you hear, you change your life, and how successful they seem, and or are portraying. We're creatures of habit, and we're creatures of accomplishment. So us as men, we're goal setters, we're goal achievers, we're task orientated. And when we feel that we are not accomplishing tasks, we're not moving forward, we settle into a depressed state, because our mind has to heal us. So it's gonna go into some addictive realms and so on and so forth. And it's only when the mind gives up, and that's when the body takes over, or emotion takes over, or the, as some call it, the spirit leaves, which then leads to the taking one's own life. It's I think it's better to focus on one or two. That way you have a sense of accomplishment, which is one of the core needs as men that we need. And once we start feeding that, and that's why I preach on doing something in self. It's, it could be a lot of stuff. You could find it in building a house, but what I found, it's not as rewarding, and it's not as changing, because you could always do. I know a lot of people that are really, really, I don't want to say messed up, but they have not the best life, but they have these, hobbies that they have because they haven't really changed. Some of the more addictive personalities that are the ones that matter, the ones that will cause the house of cards to crumble, that will lead to the change that will build you, or will build, you'll start building a new house of cards, but it'll be different. That's what you want to do. You want to keep on knocking the ones that, but it's going to have a snowball effect. And that's what you're going to do. It just knocks one off, knocks another one off. Some people, when they do, that's why you'll hear a lot of people in fitness saying, it started with just going to the gym, once a week. Then it was 3 times a week. Then it led to 5 days a week. Then I started seeing the change 2 years, 3 years later, and then it led to me getting a better relationship, finding a better quality woman. For then it led to finding a better job. Then so that, exactly what. I mean, you see or I hope you get what I'm saying. It leads to something better. The snowball just keeps on going downhill and keeps on getting more momentum, more size, and all it does is lead you to in your life. Not always the best, but it's definitely going to take you to your next place. Not often the worst, but again, it's going to take you to your next place. It's easier said than done, yes, but only because we make it into this big old thing that we have to do it in every aspect of our life, where again, we're not going to be perfect. We're not perfect, so we have to focus on the ones that will make the biggest impact, because you change those and all of the other ones will crumble because they don't matter as much. They matter as far as you recognize that you have them. You might have a porn addiction. You might have a little bit of, you smoke a little bit of weed, but, maybe you have a habit of not really giving 100% at your job, whatnot, but the gambling and your family are way more important. So you want to focus on those. And if you fix those, it could lead to a better, you're maybe not as depressed, not as stressed, because your family's happy. You have more money because now you're limiting yourself. Instead of $500 every paycheck, now you're only gambling, maybe 50 to $100, and now you have extra money to now invest it into your family, paying bills on time. Your comfort level becomes greater, so then you become happier. Then you stop drinking maybe more, you stop smoking weed a little bit more, and you see what I'm saying. So it leads to that snowball effect, where you start knocking the highest towers down or whatever. I mean, I'm the worst with analogies. I think when I hear some of the episodes, or just record them, and I edit them a little bit, because sometimes I'll smack my mouth too much, and that's disgusting. So I'll edit them and I'll hear it back, and I'm like, that was a horrible analogy, but I hope I'm getting the point across in some of these weird analogies that I keep on saying. But anywho, the point being is that once you start this snowball effect, I believe it's easier to stay disciplined. So, which leads me to my next point, is this myth that self discipline is and should be hard. Again, I think I've touched on it a little bit, where we've kind of gone into this way of thinking where as soon as we hear self discipline, we associate that with hard, with an uncomfortable notion, with that we have with self discipline, and an uncomfortable relationship that we just have. And what I believe is that it should be easy and effortless. And hear me out before you're saying what it's hard because you just said that you have to focus and so on and so forth. So and yes, it's correct. Then why did you say it should be easy and effortless? It should be at some point. So when I started going to the gym, it was very difficult. I wasn't even really that committed to it. I mean, I was committed, but I kind of went into it like saying I'm going to try it 1 or 2 days a week. I probably did a whole year, which I did see some results because I was doing certain exercises over and over and over again. That you do enough exercise no matter what. And I don't care how limiting. If you're doing something over, even if it's just 2 times a week, you're going to see some growth. So it wasn't easy, but then when I started changing and I started enjoying it more, that I put into my daily life, and it was still difficult. I would still miss days. I was going and not going as heavy or as intensely as I should be. Once I made a further commitment, then it became 5 days a week or 7 days a week. I was focused, I was driven, I was going in there with a mission, and it has now become part of my life where it just has to happen. It's not hard, it's effortless. It's just something that I look forward to doing now. It's just become a part of me, and musicians have that. Like you'll hear people say, "Oh my God, I want to learn how to play piano." Yeah, it's all good that you want to hear it, but these people that you see online are great at their craft at playing the piano. They play the piano 8 hours a day, every day. And at some point, that learning curve or learning process from picking up the keys and starting to learn, how to produce music for them, and not effortless, right? It was difficult, and it took time and patience, but that repetitiveness led to it being now easy and effortless. So as that's why when you hear this myth of discipline being hard, it's not, because once you establish your discipline, it's going to be easy and effortless. You're not going to mind drawing a picture for 10 plus hours, or just drawing pictures for 10 plus hours. You're not going to mind painting, all day long or whatever. You're not going to mind singing or producing music all day long. Once that self discipline becomes part of who you are, it just becomes easy. And that's what, when the misnomer happens, when we associate it, of course, with it being hard, because it self-discipline says, hey, you want that donut, but self-discipline tells you you should not, because you are trying to lose weight. If you don't eat that donut, you lose the weight. That then leads to you having a better body. That then leads to you having the girls that you like come, grab your attention, or get their attention. And that leads to you raising your masculinity, or the way you feel, the way you go through life, which then leads to positive outlooks with friendships, family relationships. You better at your job, which leads to more money. So it could flow that easily. Does it always flow that easily? No, but that's what self-discipline can do for men. Kind of hold us accountable, and have this self inventory of saying, hey, where do I need self-discipline? And then attaching it to that, not in moving, but in helping those areas improve and get better, and start leading to an overall better quality of life. And then it's going to just be, again, easy, and you'll just start recognizing you won't want to. Your mind will just start. Another point I wrote here is, I mean, I hope that makes sense. Where, yes, that's the myth of self discipline. Again, it's meant to say, yes, it's hard, but it's not. Self discipline, once you truly have it, it should lead to it being, like I said, easy and effortless. There's not going to be a problem or a hesitation. When I say it should be easy and effortless, is that, once you do it, once you establish it, yes, there's going to be, but that's not self discipline. the initial start. Self discipline comes in when you already are going through the motions, and now you have to stick through those motions because you're focused on the outcome. Once you're there in that, if you are doing it, or if you are having a problem when you're in the middle of that, then you're doing it wrong. Whatever, there's something that you're doing it for the wrong reasons, or there's something that's hindering you from the true reason why you are doing whatever it is that you're doing. That in that I don't know what it is, but it's something that you have to kind of talk to your own self. Because again, I don't know you, I don't know your story, but that's something that you will have to. So it's, if you're already in the process, and it becomes like, I hear it all the time, especially in fitness, when they're at the gym, how difficult, how hard, how their joints hurt, that you're doing it incorrectly. I mean, my joints hurt. There's many lifters that their muscles are sore. Certain things are not feeling great, but they are in love with the process, and they have no problem going in there and doing it and doing love over and over and over again, because to them it's nothing but an enjoyable process. The sore muscles, the joint pain, it's all part of the why they love it. And that's why I said it's going to be just easy. You're going to warm up it, you're going to do whatever you have to do just to be able to complete what you love. And that's what self-discipline does for us. So what having self-discipline will do for men, and I just wrote five of them, and it's probably the ones I say the most, which is setting goals, fitness, relationship, love life, and money. So when you apply self-discipline in any one of these five aspects, now we want to do them in all five of these aspects plus more. There's a ton more. There's a forever growing list of stuff that you could apply self-discipline to. These are the ones that I just put out, that if you apply them to these five, you're and it doesn't always have to be money. It just, situation wise, no matter what, it's going to get better. In setting goals, you're going to be more driven. You're going to be more focused on, okay, when I wake up, I'm going to make my bed. Goal one, done. And from there, I'm going to make my food for the morning. Don't doom. And whatever it is, you start having a mindset of goal setting, or a self discipline on goal setting. You're gonna be goal accomplishing is better yet, the term machine. You're just gonna be knocking them out every day. And if you tell someone, and logically just ask yourself, if I am setting goals and meeting those goals and achieving them and finishing them, can I not see my life getting better? Of course not. Of course your life is gonna get better. Of course you're gonna improve your situation, because you're not moving through life in a, hey, we'll wait and see. No, I have goals and I'm gonna match them. I'm gonna walk certain steps a day, done. I'm gonna try to eat clean, done. I'm gonna make sure that I'm the best husband that I can be, done. I'm gonna be the best boyfriend, done. I'm gonna try to be more romantic, done. I'm going to not let people step all over me, today. I'm gonna be assertive, whatever it is. But if you're always knocking them out every moment, every hour, and you're disciplined on setting goals daily, hourly, by the minute, and you're achieving them, you're there cannot be no. I don't think you could fail. I don't know. I mean, I'm just going off of what I'm doing in my life, and that's been my view, or the way I'm seeing it. And even in that, I'm failing at setting more goals for myself. I still find myself in states where I'm not setting and achieving goals and accomplishing goals. And I'm that's something that I'm applying more self-discipline into, that because there should never be a moment wasted. Life is too short, and we complain so much. But in just that, setting goals and making sure you apply that, it's gonna become so repetitive, where it becomes easy and effortless to set goals, achieve goals, that leads to just future and better success. Number two, fitness. We all know it. It does. You can't go from not lifting any weights to you lift it one day, and then the day two you look like Arnold in his prime. Self discipline, and it's gonna take little by little, a compound effect, that you started with at one point, and now through 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, in that span, you have gone from a frame of a body to a godlike of a body, and it took 10 years, a decade to do. And a lot of people don't have that discipline to be able to put that kind of effort into it. And it could lead the discussion into, that's why, that there's, you see all these hate and all these people out there just, hating on people that have been working out in 10, 20, years. And they get all mad because they've been going to the gym for 3 years and I don't see results like this and and whatever. I'm not gonna get into that, into that discussion, even though I probably opened up the can of worms. But another one is relationships, right? When you start establishing self-discipline into relationships, whether it be in dating and saying, hey, I overlook red flags, so now I'm not gonna do it. And you establish uh, self-discipline and honoring your boundaries um, and having your standards met. So if you do that enough and you add discipline, the quality of women around you, or even the quality of your wife, your kids, your friendships, your anything, is going to get better because you're attaching that self-discipline, and that alone will help you hold and stand on your standards, and not let people step over your boundaries. Your love life, I was going into that in the beginning, but then I kind of remember that relationships, for me, is just a broader sense, just with everyone we come in contact with. And in our love life, if we do it with our significant other, our wife and our girlfriend, or even girls that we're meeting, and we attach self-discipline for that, like I hinted up when I was talking about relationships, about seeing the red flags. If you do the same thing in your love life, you're going to start weeding out girls that, or women that are going to waste your time. Not saying it's going to be perfect, and that women are still not going to waste your time. That's just the luck of the draw, just like men waste women's time. Goes both ways. But the likelihood is that if you have self-discipline in your love life and hold whatever it is, and it'll just trickle down to holding your standards and boundaries and expectations to a definitely something that you shouldn't go down from, and it'll help you maintain it to then help you hopefully weed out time wasters. And in your money, the same thing. If you attach self-discipline, I mean, there's enough channels on YouTube for you guys to understand that self-discipline and finance is the greatest power you could do and you can have. When you have full control of your finances, where everything is, and investing, and self-discipline, and not spending when you don't have it, living within your means, living below your means, always budgeting, always looking at your numbers and making sure you're cutting out waste, and where you could do all these things. When you apply self-discipline to that, I mean, come on, you're gonna end up being able to buy that house. You're gonna end up buying to have that car, having the car you want. You're gonna end up being able to enjoy, taking out women to amazing dates, because now you're gonna, want to have better experiences for yourself, right? So you're gonna obviously up your game because now you have more money. And you, not because of the woman. You want to do it because you want the experience. The woman is just an accessory to our life, and but that just means the experience are not even better, even bigger, because you budgeted, you had self discipline in your finances that then led you to have a bigger book. And forget women. What if your goal is to buy a house, to buy that Jeep that you wanted, whatever it is? But you have to, when you apply it to money, I mean, you can't do anything but win. It's gonna leave men in a better position, and it's gonna then trickle into. I mean, what man does not like to have a healthy bank account, and what does that not do for your ego? Talk to anyone that has a few grand in a bank, and that's just a couple grand. They feel like they're freaking Elon Musk. They feel like they are balling on, like, bro, you only have 2,000 in your bank account, yet you flossing like it's 20 grand. That's what self-discipline does. You don't know how hard or how disciplined he is, but he might be proud of that 2000 that he has in the bank. But when what it does for the ego, what it does for our self-esteem, knowing that, hey, my bills are paid, everything is caught up, yet I'm sitting on 2 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, a mil. Any man will tell you, when you're sitting on that, not living paycheck to paycheck, and you are able to move around and flow the way you want to. I mean, that for the self-esteem and for the ego and for the purpose, wow, that is, it takes it to a different level. And that's, again, nothing new. It's definitely something that you hear that being preached a lot, and that's what self-discipline is can do for us men in our finances. And honestly, not only men, anyone, when you apply self-discipline. And the last thing I wrote here, it says self-discipline is hard in the beginning, but it will become a habit, then it becomes easy. So I think, I think I've been hinting at that the whole podcast, and or this whole episode, and that's basically it. That self discipline is going to start off hard. Nothing worth having is going to start off being easy. Talent doesn't become talent overnight. It leads up to it. You don't, you only see the finished product. It's what they say. I think Tony Robbins says it. He says, you're praised for what you practice. What so, when you practice on your craft and you worked on your craft when no one is seeing you, when you polish that up and then you present it to the world, you're then congratulated for all the effort that no one saw, then rewards you with the accolades, with the followers, with the. But in having this self discipline, understand that it's just in the beginning, just getting over that initial 4 or 5 days, that 30-day window. And I only go from 1 to 5 to 30, just because depending on what it is, if you're going to the gym, it's going to probably take 30 days for it to become a habit. Quitting smoking, I've heard some go and say after the fourth day and fifth day, it's when, you kind of are on the downhill. You've curved that, or you should be curving that addiction. Especially if you've been a heavy smoker and you manage 4 days without smoking, I mean, you could call that done. You're done with smoking cigarettes. It's the 1 and 2 days when, the second day is the worst. I've gone one day. I went a long time. I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but when I was trying to quit, in it was a failure every time. So they try. There is no try. You either do or don't. But I did the first day and I felt 24 hours. Oh, I could do it. That next day, that jonesing that comes with that, wanting to smoke a cigarette. Oh my God. That is definitely, by the end of the day, I don't care. You could go all morning in the afternoon, but that nighttime, on that drive home from work, you're stopping and you're buying that pack of cigarettes. It's hard. So, anyways, that's why I said 1 to 5 and then jump to 30, because in cigarettes, in some addictions, it could be less, more, whatever. And not even just in the addiction, any self discipline, whether it's weight loss or a certain meal you're eating, saving money, fixing relationships, romantically, friendships, at family, friends, and acquaintances, it's going to be hard in the beginning. But if it matters enough, it's going to become habit forming. And once it becomes habit forming, it just becomes part of you, part of your identity, part of your personality, part of just who you are. And once that becomes that part of you, it's going to just be easy. Just the same that if we develop bad habits, it's going to become easier. If we don't have self-discipline, it's still going to become easy to develop these. Once we have these habits, it's easy, right? When you're an alcoholic, it's easy to buy more alcohol. When you're smoking weed, it's easy just to buy weed, and it's easy to just get fucking Jones out of crystal meth and cocaine, or it's easy to just sleep around and be sexually promiscuous and stuff like that. The point is of all of this stuff for us, man, is to take control of our lives. So we don't let the bad habits form that lead to these easy results, because no matter what, it's going to lead to easy results once you establish the habit. But when we just don't have self discipline and standards for ourselves, or we don't practice self discipline, forget the standards. We're focusing on self discipline. Self discipline just enforces our standards. Just the negative stuff's going to be so easy, and then it leads us to a snowball effect in a direction we don't want, that leads to a feeling of our life spiraling out of control, nothing being doing correct, and then ultimately, unfortunately, many men taking their own lives. And that's what we ultimately want to cut down on, the loss of life because circumstances that should be talked about more, and ways in a positive mindset, in a positive way, in a healthy way that is individual, because there's too many variables for individuals. But what you want to do is have a healthier discussion as a whole, as men as a whole, and be able to say it's okay to talk about this, just because there's a gap in knowledge that we need to fill in. But we want to make sure, in just for the purposes of this podcast, or for the topic of this episode, is understanding that if we just adapt self-discipline, it's going to be hard, but it's going to, if we have that correct mindset where we have a vision of our life and we apply self-discipline, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard in the beginning, but once you pass that initial difficulty stage, you'll start the momentum. Whether you believe in energy or whatever, that's not my point to argue in this podcast. Momentum is that, it's momentum. It's taking you because that's what you've been doing. And if you have a momentum of a destruction life path, then you're going to have that momentum going there. So is it difficult, when you're hearing this and you're like, I want to, not drink as much? I know I've been using that, and I know I'm picking on alcoholism, but in this one, you're fighting a train going 1,000 miles an hour. So for you to start just, and yeah, you wanna, the point is to the train to stop, but that's just the goal one. Eventually, yeah, you want to slow it down and stop, but then you want to hopefully turn it around and go back and lead into a positive state, which is cutting down or quitting. And then, maybe you have a beer gut now and you want to work that out. And then once you get that train going, it's going to lead from that first, I got my life turned around, I cut drinking. Now I'm going to start working on my body and getting rid of what the drinking did to me. And then you have to put self-discipline, because maybe you have a beer gut that you worked. You have to understand it might take you 3 to 5 years of hard work to get that, so, but it just leads to the easier once you start turning the train around and then moving towards the direction, the same momentum that took you down that spiral. It's going to, you might, and it's the funny part, and it's the sad part. I want to sit here and say that, yeah, you're going to be going 1,000 miles per hour in the positive way. You're going to be going your 50 miles an hour, 60-mile cruising speed in a positive way. It's just, sadly, that's the way it works. It's easy to fall into horrible habits. It's easy to fall into destructive habits. That's why it's so tempting. That's temptation. It's easy. Which I started that with, bitching about the guys that go after, married women, or girls that are in a monogamous relationship. Having self-discipline, having that standard, saying, hey, yeah, I know it's easy, but for my life and where I'm going, I need to go this direction. It becomes easier. Just, hang in there, set those self-discipline in whatever aspect of your life that you see the most benefit. That if you say, hey, if I change this, I don't like this about the, it could be a lot of stuff. Like I said, you could write it down, whatever, but focus on what will lead to the most change. For some, it could be a breakup. For some, it could be dieting. For some, it could be, and I know I went from a breakup to diet change, but it can be that you have to understand what aspects, and applying self-discipline to those. And in that aspect, in the extreme one, it could lead to a life altering changes. So, but only what what that means to you and what can cause the biggest trickle effect and the biggest benefit. And like I said, I know it's harsh on the divorce part, but sometimes leaving a relationship, a toxic relationship, a divorce, is the best thing that leads to the biggest trickle down effect, that leads to just the biggest positivity that you can ever have imagined. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen it around me in my eyes, like from my eyes, not just experiencing through my own life, but seeing it in an external way very clearly. That. So I hope you guys found value in this video and some inspiration to hang in there and kind of focus on I know society's saying, and you hear it all, focus, you change everything and blah blah blah. Don't do that. You're just setting yourself up for failure. Focus on what can cause the most effect, and once you focus that, you can't help it, but even on those other parts that you need work, you will just automatically start doing them without you even having to worry and think that much, because your accomplishment on those two aspects that are the more important ones, once those start falling, guess what? The other ones that were beneath it will eventually start, you have to, your mind will deal with them, but then you already kind of have that momentum where now you're, hey, you know what? Now I want to quit this a little bit. So you start cutting back on this, and now I'm going to try this. And then all of a sudden it's captivating 5 hours of your free time. So now you only have like 3 hours of free time. You're improving, you're working on that. So if imagine that now, 5 hours of that kind of thinking, and you add that in a week, you add that in a year, you add that in 2 years, it's the compound effect, right? That's when you hear all these kind of success stories or life-changing events. But so again, I hope you guys found value in this video, and again, gave you guys some kind of hope and inspiration to just kind of hang in there and just apply a little bit of self-discipline. Share the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time.